center stage conversation, the 30-year overnight success story of Patrick Fabian. We are so thrilled to have Patrick here with us today, and this conversation will be moderated by the wonderful Marc Comstock. And I have the pleasure of introducing Marc. Marc Comstock is a local actor, director, and producer. He recently completed serving his third term as the New Mexico SAG-AFTRA local president. Marc was recently appointed by Governor Lujan Grisham to serve a 4-year term on the Governor's Council of Film and Media Industries. His credits include recurring roles on both Night Shift in Manhattan, and films include The Scorched Trials, Maze Runner, The Dust Monologues, Secondhand Sunset, which was a 48-hour winner for Best Film, and the upcoming Americana. I'll now pass it over to Marc to introduce Patrick.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. Thank you. Patrick has given me permission to do the abbreviated version of his bio, so it's just like mine but longer. Let's see. Best known, obviously, for Howard Hamlin, right, on Better Call Saul. But when you look at his credits, there's been so many things. It's been 24, Joan of Arcadia, which I love that show, Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, Castle, Lucifer. Like, if it's out there, Patrick has been on it. You live in California with his wife, 2 daughters, and 2 dogs.
Yes.
How long have you been in California now?
Came out in 1987.
Okay.
A long time, 35 years.
Okay. And before we dive in, we're gonna have a little slideshow.
I think it's starting.
See?
Yeah.
Look at that guy.
Thanatos. Gordita Chronicles. Grey's Anatomy, Dr. Butthole. Lucifer. Lucifer again without the sub. Oh, Professor Lasky.
Yeah. Saved by the Bell.
He kissed Kelly Kapowski. There's my family at the beach. That's me at the Emmys.
Yeah, baby.
And that's me at the Emmys the first time with my wife. And that's Ray Seahorn. I don't know if you know her.
Yeah, I've heard of her.
Yeah. Al Pacino. I just did this in February. Got to work with him on an Exorcist movie.
Yay.
I know, Father. I was a bishop, actually. I got elevated. Yeah.
Power station. So you were born in New Cumberland, PA, right? And then you went to Penn State.
Yep.
And then Cal State, got your master's.
Yep.
So what was that transition from getting your master's and then going on to Hollywood? Like, what was that jump like, or that transition like?
Well, after 6 years of higher education and becoming an actor, you moved to Los Angeles, and nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Nah, they don't care. They don't care that you've done, Chekhov and done the musical and stuff like that. I started waiting tables. It was like literally that thing. I came out of school thinking I had all this training, and then you had to get a job, you had to eat. So I got a job waiting tables, and I joined a theater company that, didn't pay. And you would make time after work, and you'd go work in the theater, because I knew how to do that. I knew how to build sets, costumes, and hold spears left and right, audition, get into a company, and then eventually I auditioned for the LA Shakespeare Festival. And I ended up getting my equity cards doing that. Doing Shakespeare Under the Stars, right across from the Hollywood Bowl at the John Hanson Ford Theater.
Yeah.
And in the crooked line that is anybody's career, especially in the arts, there is no template as to how this is how you do this. And so I was doing what I was told, which was, having a job, getting in a theater company, auditioning for things. The theater, the Shakespeare wasn't really paying, but the people who hired me, I did it 2 seasons in a row. And the second season, they said, if you work as our assistant stage manager, you'll get your card at the end of the year. So I did that. So I halved all my waiting table shifts in half, and I started doing that. I would only work dinners when I had rehearsal during the day, and when we went into production, I switched it around again. I was holding spears on a show, Love Labor's Lost. I had about 7 or 8 lines and about, 4 or 5 pieces of physical humor. And since you only had 5 chances, I made them work.
Yeah.
An agency came to see the leads of the show. And then afterwards, Jean St. Calvary, God rest her soul, came backstage and handed me her card and said, "Are you represented by anybody?" And I said, "No." She goes, "Call me tomorrow." And so that was the crooked line that started me onto that. They couldn't sign me because I was green. I was out of college. I was working for a theater company for no money. But she said, "I can send you out. I'll hip pocket you and send you out." And she goes, "Do you know where Paramount is?" I'm like, "I don't know where Paramount is. I knew where anything was." You know, at the time they had a thing called a Thomas guide before phones.
Yes.
And it was a big, thick thing.
Yes.
And you would get an address, and it was like a Rubik's Cube, and you would sit that with on your side, and you would drive around town. And
And then you would try to find the slots that said no, because they always said no actor parking.
yeah. Well, the first time I go to Fox,
Yeah.
I go to the Fox slot, and I'm like, oh my God, it's this, like I didn't conceive what a studio was. There was no behind the scenes stuff, you know what I mean? I go to the gate and I was allowed to go in. 4th floor above on the parking garage. and you park and then you have to take this map and you're going past, there's The Simpsons. That's where they shot Star Wars. And there's these plaques on the studio wall. Movies going back for half a century. And I'm like, whoa, it's incredible. And then I go into audition for Doogie Howser, MD.
Yeah.
For the young people out there, that's Neil Patrick Harris's first job.
Who's from New Mexico?
Hey, is he?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I go in and I walk in and there's 20 of me. I mean 20 of me. Better teeth, different eyes, but we're all about 23 years old. And I look around and I'm like, oh, wow. And then they call me in for the audition and I go into the audition room. And this is where 6 years of training comes to pass. Because I knew how to audition. I knew how to break down stuff. I'd done my homework when I got the sides the night before. I made decisions. I'd memorized it. I was cold, back and forth, blah, 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 blah. And so I see these guys, and I'm like, and I get into this room, and then there's a camera, and this is the old days. There was 3 producers, there was 2 writers, there was a casting director, and an assistant. There's like 7 people. And all of a sudden, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But everything sort of got small, because I'm like, who am I reading with? They're like, you're reading with him. Oh, okay. That's my scene partner. And then, honestly, I don't mean to be glib about it, but that's when the act of learning a craft comes home. Now I do my thing. I'm talking and listening with this person. I can ignore the rest of them. We do our scene. I think I get some laughs. I feel pretty confident because I get out and I go to a phone booth outside of the big one.
Yeah.
Push that door open. I put my quarters in and I call that wonderful woman, Jean Say Calbrain, and I say to her, I think I got it. And
youth.
yeah, well, she said to me, she goes, I bet you did. But just in case. Do you know where Warner Brothers is? I don't know. She goes, I have an audition for you at Warner Brothers tomorrow. So come by and get. Of course, I didn't get that job. And I didn't get the job. And I didn't get the job. And I didn't get the job for like 6 months. And then I got a job.
And what was that?
That was a thing called Jack's Place. And it was in flashback sequence with Dana Hashbrook. And Hal Linden was the lead in real time. And I probably had 6 or 7 lines. That was it. And I thought I was king.
Yeah?
It was amazing. And literally that first job, that begat other jobs, little ones, guest stars, blah, 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 blah. And then finally, I booked a pilot. About 7 months, 8 months after being with them, sort of sending me out, I booked a couple of jobs. And then I booked a pilot, a half-hour sitcom starring Kathy Kinney and Judge Reinhold. And at the time, the producers involved were producers who had, they were riding high. They'd done Northern Exposure, and I mean, they were just, anything they did was getting made. And I remember I was still waiting tables, and I was doing these jobs and waiting tables and doing these jobs, and we did tape night on a Friday night, and it was a live audience, 4 cameras, and it was super fun. It was just like live theater, which I had done before, so I really liked it. It was roaring laughter, it was heady. I had a dressing room. They sent me flowers. I had signed contracts, all of that stuff. And Warren Littlefield was the head of NBC at the time. And I got a chance to tell him this story years and years later. We're standing on the floor. We're having a good time because everybody wants it to be a hit, right? And everyone's laughing. And Judge Reinhold is funny. And Kathy Kinney is funny. And everyone's laughing. And Warren Littlefield puts his arm around me. And he goes, oh, you can go buy a house. I love this show. It's going to run for years. Well, that's all I needed. The head of the network just told me it's going to run for years. I quit my job the very next day. I went in on Saturday night for my shift, and I said, I'm out of here. And they're like, you can't. You're closing tomorrow. I'm like, no, I'm not. I took all my tips. I got drunk with the busboys. I handed in my apron. See ya. I waited for the phone to ring. Well, I was thinking, you know, and of course it didn't ring. And then I called my agent. By the way, I have never called my agent or my manager and had them say, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, you got that job. So
Yeah.
I called her saying, well, what happened to the pilot? And that wonderful woman, Jean Say Cowboy, she goes, oh, yeah, honey, they didn't pick that up. I don't worry, we'll find you something else. I quit my fucking job. And I said to my roommate at the time, I said, I don't get it. What am I supposed to do? We were sort of trying to figure it out. And he said, I guess you're supposed to find another acting job. And it was in that moment that all of a sudden it occurred to me that it wasn't the ending. It wasn't, I get this thing and we're done. Congratulations, your degree has worked and it's over. It was like, oh, it's this. Again and again and again and again and again. You got to go get that job. And either it goes or it doesn't. And you got to get that job. And it either goes or it doesn't. So it really is about auditioning. That's what the job is. The job is auditioning. And thankfully, going to college, undergrad, and graduate prepared me for that. And it's also a job, a job of massive rejection. But,
well,
part and parcel.
Artists are a resilient group. So, you know,
sometimes,
and if you love it, do it, right? So early on, you're booking some of these gigs. What were some of like the first lessons that outside of like quitting your job on the assumption that, what were some of the lessons that you learned from either that were on the show or you're like, oh my gosh, this is great advice? Because Patrick has a reputation for anyone who worked on Saul of if you're in the bus or the van going to set, like, hey, who are you? Like reaching out, connecting, like he's a social animal, likes to introduce us. He's a people person through and through. So how did that come about? But what did you learn on set that you're like, I would never do that? Or, oh, that's a great thing that I should work on doing.
In line with that, one, I'm just emotionally broken, so I need everybody to like me. That's an aside, It's really between me and my therapist.
Thought that was off camera.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's a hard enough business as it is, and everybody is sort of going, and of course you're competing and all that stuff, but in the end, everybody is sort of grateful and thankful to be making this thing. It may be good, it may be bad. We all think it might be good. We all think it might go somewhere, but it either doesn't or does. It doesn't come together. Anybody who's ever been part of production or a thing knows that on the outset, we have great hopes for this. And then along the way, it either the cake bakes or it doesn't. You're always going up and down on the ladder. There's nobody who's just up there all the time. You may think so, but everyone's going up and down on the ladder. And so don't be an asshole. I was told that very early on. One of the first jobs I had was Murder, She Wrote. There was a picture of me and Angela Lansbury.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first gigs I got. And two things about that. One, my parents pretty much thought I peaked in 1994. They knew Angela Lansbury. They're like, he's going to be fine. He's worked with her.
Right.
And we were on set, and this is probably deep into her run, and she was nice to everybody. Her husband was on the set, sleeping in a Barca lounger, and she would go over and pat his head. He would wake up and watch takes, and they'd take a nap. She sat with me. I was a guest star, wet behind the ears. And she had a director's chair, and she sat right next to me between takes. Could have gone anywhere. It's her show. She's the executive producer, and she's Angela Lansbury. She sat beside me, and she would hum, and I would hum. And she was humming something at one point, and I started humming, and I'm like, oh, I love that. It's a Cole Porter tune. She goes, yeah. And I said, do you dance? How precocious. Do you dance, Miss Lansbury? And she goes, oh, yeah. So she gets up and sticks out her hand. And I get up and we just do a little soft shuffle and, sing Tea for Two or something like that. And it was just, I asked her, what was your biggest disappointment? Because now we're friends, right?
Right. Yeah.
She says without missing a beat, she goes, oh, I was really hurt when they took Lucille Ball from Mame because I'd originated that role. But, what are you going to do? That's the business. And she said it without malice. And that stuck with me.
Yeah.
And then she asked me about me. Angela Lansbury sat there and she goes, so tell me about you. Well, I just got out of school. Blah, 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 blah. Then I met this woman, God bless her soul. Blah. And she listened. She gave me time.
Yeah.
And it was a big, real important, boy. That's a real important thing,
Yeah.
She gave me time. Gave me the time and date. Made me feel like I belonged.
And that's clearly landed with you.
Yeah.
Right? And stuck with you, and you make everyone feel like they belong.
Well, and we do. We do. You do not do it on your own.
No.
You just do not do it on your own. I happen to be the one in front of the camera getting to use the benefits of the person who wrote it, the person who shot it, lit it, and dressed me. But without any of those people, without any of the background artists behind to fill out, for instance, HHM, my office is nothing.
Right.
None of it works. None of it works. It is a pyramid that is built with many, 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 and I get to exist in the top a lot of the times, and I realize I'm fortunate with that.
Yeah.
And it's when it really works and it really functions, it is a collective, and that's what I've always liked about it. In high school, I was in marching band and chorus and all that stuff. I was a band geek. But what I loved about that was it's a whole bunch of people. You can't make the 1812 overture with just a trombone. You need everybody, but
and
you
you
have
tried,
everybody
yeah.
doing their thing,
Yeah.
paying attention for the collective. You can make something, and that magic, that stuff, that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But boy, when it does, and you all know that you've been a part of making that thing happen, I mean, there's no better high in the world, at least for me.
What's the high that you feel when you're getting to see the end result of a successful show versus doing live theater? How does that come? Are they the same high for you?
Well, I think the high is actually on the
rehearsal?
day,
Yeah.
on the day when you're doing stuff. Because by the time I witness it, you get polluted with the beating stick. You know, I think every actor just goes like, oh, I made that choice. I wish I could have that differently.
Yeah.
You know, you want to have things back. But there's a moment sometimes when you're on set, and you know, particularly, I'll go real quick with this. In Better Call Saul, Bob and Ray and I are doing, I'll get right to the end, you know, sort of Howard's exit. And there's a big scene that we have, and I have a massive amount of dialogue for the first time in 6 years. All of a sudden, Chatty Howard comes out of it, you know? Finally, I can call my mom and say, it is called Better Called Howard this episode, you know? And I was nervous. Grown-ass man, married, 2 kids, have a long career. I'm on this show for 5 years, and I am nervous. I'm nervous like first time on stage. It's a big day. It's a goodbye day, too. It's a lot boiling in it, you know? I've become best friends with Bob and Ray. You know, Bob and I, you know, it's a lot. I'm saying goodbye to a character. I'm saying goodbye to my friends. I'm saying goodbye to this job, this moment in life. So it's really fraught. Well, none of that doesn't matter if you don't have your fucking lines memorized. But I was memorized. I did my work. I'm ready. I've got choices. I'm ready to play. But I got the heebies. So we do a run. I know it's not good. And I also know, like, don't think that thought, let that thought go. It's okay. It's a river of thought. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm pulling out every trick. But it's not happening. We're trying to do a run top to bottom on this very long, important scene, and I know it's not happening. And I'm looking at my fellow actors, and they know it's not happening. And Ray takes me aside. And she doesn't talk about it not happening. She takes me aside, and she talks about something else for a second. And then she puts a thought in my head. She goes, you know, I think I know where you're going with this. And da, da, da. Maybe you should think, I'm not trying to direct you or anything, but, you know, da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's good. And then Bob came over. And by the way, not directing me. Just came over as fellow actors to sort of put hands on me. Breathe. Tom Schnauz is directing. Let's go again from the top. Okay, let's go from the top. I go outside. Blah, blah, blah. We do it. And then about a quarter of the way into the scene, something's happening. Same words. Same, what's it?
Blocking?
Walking around. What is it called? Blocking. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen.
He's new.
Yeah. And yet something is different. Everything is different. You can feel it. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know what the next word is. I'm not worried about, do I do this with the glass and all that stuff out of my head? And you can feel it. And we get to the end of it. And like the two of them look over me and it's in their eyes. They're like, They don't say a word. And I hear Tom from Video Village. He goes, yeah, can we do that again? Let's go. We're on to something. And boom, it's all hands on decks. And we know that moment lasts for about 15 minutes. It's ripe. We're getting stuff. Things are good. Bum, bum, bum. Halfway through, maybe we have a stumble. Boom, back it up 2 lines. Bum, bum, bum. It's that moment where it's all juggling and all the balls are in the air and then they start to fall and when we stop, we're going to blow in for coverage. But we had it. We had a spot then. We knew. And that was exciting. And then to watch it on the other end, I experience it like that.
Okay.
I see that. And what I remember is the feeling of them placing their hands on me and their eyes, and then I see the result. But I still want to go like, I don't know that. I don't like that look. Look at those lines. He's got crow's feet. You know, whatever.
Yeah.
But that excitement, I mean, that's what you're looking for, and that's heady and fun.
That's the magic of it, right?
And that is the magic of it. And by the way, it doesn't have to come with a Vince Gilligan show or with Bob Odenkirk or Ray Seahorn. It can come in a good sitcom where all of a sudden the setup and the punch, boom, hits, and the audience laughs.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I was going to save this towards the end, but Howard's last scene, and you're now talking about how the process of that. We as the audience, we saw all of that through Howard's eyes. That this is that moment. I've tried to do the right thing. I've always tried to play by the rules and be a good guy, and this is my fate.
Yes.
And what you were doing as the actor, what we're seeing as the audience is like his whole journey came up to that moment, and it was just one of my favorite moments of the show because we got everything that you had been building over this time with Howard, and you got that payoff, and then to hear the backstory on that, just kind of gives you that collaborative chill.
Well, it is. And by the way, that's all built on the lattice work of the writer's room.
Absolutely.
All of that comes from the writing, without a doubt, from day one. They didn't know that this is where we're going to end up with Howard. And that's a tip of the hat to Vince Gilliam, Peter Gould, Tom Schnauz, all those writers. They sat there and labored over, is it a period or a question mark? Is it an ellipse? What is this? What's he say? He doesn't say Howard doesn't talk with ums and you knows, right?
Right? No.
And as an actor, they gave me that. And then Jen Bryan put me in those beautiful suits, and they gave me that. And so I got to be armored with both that physically, literally, and then armed with those words. And then I get to go play with other people who are equally armed. And we have that thing that over 6 years, 6 seasons, that payoff happens. And then I think it also pays off with the audience as well, because they've also gone on this journey that has been not talking down to them, not dumbing down to them, and allowing them to go with it. So when that thing happens, everybody gets to win.
Yeah,
I think.
tell the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the writers direct the episodes.
Yes.
How is it when you have an outside director come in and do an episode? I've been on sets where I noticed that they pay a lot of attention to like the guest stars and day players because the regulars usually kind of have their thing. But I also feel like with your show, it was still that collaborative effort. Like, well, what do you think about this? Or how would this be set up? Like, what's it like coming in with someone who's jumping on your moving train and trying to keep them on the tracks?
Well, I mean, again, the director is director, without a doubt. I can't be a director.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be when I'm doing my own work as an actor.
Yeah,
I think that's,
right.
for me, that's a fool's errand. I can't do that.
Absolutely.
And these directors are well coached by production before they come in. They know what world they're in.
Right.
So they're already sort of like put up with that. But as you go through, like you're season 3, I know what Howard does to a degree. And so when somebody gives you a direction where you're like, well, I don't know, there's ways, particularly in this show, that you can communicate that and get it. But I will say this, one of the reasons the shows works well is because we rehearsed. Bob and Ray and I would rehearse each other's scenes every night with one another, the next day's work, the next week's work. We would always be up, and whenever guest stars came in, we would call them up and be like, hey, can we come up to the hotel lobby, or do you want to come down and rehearse? So we would have decisions and choices made, so when we got to set, we didn't have to waste time with that. We could show them something, and then the director could be like, oh, take away A and B, I like E and F. And you go, oh, okay, great. And if there's an issue, you can have a discussion, but rarely was there a moment where all of a sudden we're like, oh, I won't do that. You don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean?
That's me on set. No. How soon in advance would you get scripts, and how did you know that this was Howard's fate, or how early on did you know, or did you not know until the last season we started filming?
Well, in terms of scripts, we knew week to week. That was what was going on. We never knew. Nobody asked me what I thought Howard's arc should be. You know, and you know, to Bob and Ray's credit too, nobody went asking and poking around.
Right.
What's going to happen?
Right.
You know,
Why open your Christmas present early?
Well, it's fruitless. You know, although Ray and I did for the first 3 years get the script and go, not dead, good. That was a thing.
Yeah.
And to that point, Vince called me. I got a call from Vince, Peter Gould, and Melissa Bernstein, the triumvirate of the producers of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. And they called me before the beginning of season 6. And you don't want to get a call from all 3 producers. Melissa called. She goes, hi, it's Melissa. I've got Peter and Vince on the line. Give us a call. I was like, oh, no. Yeah. But I called them, and Vince just said, he goes, hey, I just want to let you know the writers are real excited. You know, we've been trying to figure out something, and we finally figured it out, and Howard's real central to it, and we're really excited about that. And I said, and? And he said, and, well, you're going to be able to take vacation a little bit earlier this season. And I said, great, I don't need to know anything else except who's writing it. And he goes, oh, Schnauz is writing it. And I said, yeah, of course he is.
Yeah.
And that was it. He goes, now keep this under your hat. And I forgot it. You know, I never told my wife anything. We got real good about not talking about the show at all, or talking about it and talking around it with no details. And I didn't tell Bob, and I didn't tell Ray.
Yeah.
And we lived together in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And we would sit there and have that conversation. What do you think is going to happen to your character? I don't know. So when the episode came out, and by the time the episode did come to us, I had convinced myself they had changed their mind because I had heard nothing else.
Yeah.
And Howard was doing a lot. And I thought, oh, this is fantastic. Yeah. They've changed their mind, and I'm going to do this, and maybe there's going to be a spin-off about Howard and blah, blah, blah.
Quit that job.
Yeah. 56 years old and still dreaming like a 17-year-old boy,
Well,
right?
I emailed my mom saying about this, and she's 80. And she goes, it's really nice of you to help this Patrick fellow out. I do what I can, Patrick. I do what I can.
You tell her I still have a teaching degree. I can always go back to that, right?
How did you get Howard? What was that process like? How did you book the gig?
I auditioned.
Yeah?
Casting director has given me all my career. I didn't hit it big. I don't have big fat agents and stuff like that. I'm a grunt. I'm a working actor. I'm a journeyman actor. Very,
Absolutely.
very, very grateful for that. And so this came up because Sherry Thomas and Sharon Viali, casting agency, called me up. My agents had me come in for it. And, you know, I mean, I'll try and... this is a good... I had not watched Breaking Bad. And I saw all the billboards, I saw all the awards, but I hadn't watched it. And the reason was my wife was pregnant with our first child when the first season came out. And she's probably, I don't know, 8, 9 months pregnant. And we sat there to watch the pilot. And we finished watching the pilot, and she's rubbing the miracle of life. And she turns to me and she goes, yeah, I'm not on board with this. And so we had a baby. And then we didn't watch that. And then we had another baby. We didn't watch that. But we did watch all of Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Yeah.
All of it, backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And then by the time Saul was happening, I still hadn't watched Breaking Bad. So I have to rewrite just real quick. I wake up on the wrong side of 50 in this business, and I'm staring at the ceiling. I have a mortgage and 2 kids, and all of a sudden the phone's not ringing, because that's what happens in this business. Actually, in any business. And I'm like, wow. And I'm not getting calls. And finally I get a call for a show called Dog with a Blog. And it's for ABC Family. And it's, you know, the dog is number 1 on the call sheet. No shit.
Yeah.
And, but my friends actually play the parents on the show. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is this the best my agents can do? Is this what you've done with your career? Dog with a Blog? And and then I get over myself, because it turns out Dog with a Blog does pay American money, and my mortgage requires American money. So I get over myself. I put on my acting suit. I go down there, and I walk into a room of 20 of me, except we're all over 50 now. That guy has an Emmy. I know. All of them. We all have resumes long of our legs. We're all capable of doing this job. And we're all looking at each other like, oh, it's come to this, has it? I'm the first one to go in. The walls are thin. I walk in. I think her name is Elena Goldstein. She's the casting director, and she's dressed up. I mean, like, dressed up like from the 40s. I mean, she's like she's looking great. She's been doing this forever. The gentlemen who are the producers at the time, in the telling of the tale, they get younger and younger. They are young, and they've got a backward baseball cap, and they have McDonald's in front of them. And I go in and hand them my 8x10 like an ancient man.
Here's my 8x10.
They look at it like I've given them Ross fish. They're like, what is this? And I look at Elena. And Elena looks at me. My God, I love her so much. She's sitting there, and she goes, all right, Patrick, thank you. So when you are talking to the camera, you will be talking to the camera here. And she points to the camera like somehow I don't know what a camera is. And then she goes, and when you're talking to the dog, you'll be talking to me. And at that point, I feel bad for Elena and me. That it's come to this. And it's for the first time in my life, I go, you can walk. You don't have to be here. This is humiliating. Don't you know who I think I am? And I stand there, and I'm like, I can make an excuse. We can smooth it over. She'll probably have it in my back end. And then I finally go, oh, shit, you brought on your acting suit. She dressed up. You're not really here for this job. You're here for this relationship with the casting director, to do the best you can, because you might not get this job, and then she will think of you later if you acquit yourself. It's all that. And also, why would you show up and be shitty? Suck it up. Start doing Dog with a Blog. Well, 2 lines into it, the young men start laughing. Well, I'm done.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing this. Hey! All of a sudden, halfway through, I'm like, you know, this is pretty funny material. It really is. And
I'm going to buy a second house.
it really was. I was like, wow. And so I finished the audition. I come out, like I said, the walls were thin. I was the first one in, and all my friends are there. They were literally like, oh, well, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. And then I called my manager on the way home. I have never done this. And I said, you can book me on that one, baby. I knocked that out of the park. I'm very excited because the character's actually very fun in retrospect. And maybe they're going to expand him into 6. And my kids can watch it. Did I mention it pays American money? So now I'm all in on ABC Family. I wonder if they have, I'm doing all this stuff all the way home. Blah, 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 blah. Sure enough, by 5 o'clock, my manager calls me. They put a pin in you, Patrick. Whoa. That means they're looking for somebody else, but they're wanting you to wait on the hopes that you might have this job. And I'm like, great. I wait 5 days. I do the same thing again. 27 years later, I call my manager. What happened to that job on Dog with the Blog?
I forgot to tell you about it, right?
And he goes, let me phone. Calls. 2 minutes later, he calls back and he goes, they offered to do a name of your name. Don't worry, we'll find you something. A name of your name? For the guest star on Dog with the Blog? Meaning all of us, all the guys who I saw there, all were the... What? And I get cold. I'm like, wow, you've made some shitty life decisions. 2 weeks later, I get an audition for Better Call Saul, the prequel to Breaking Bad. And I go, wow. Well, if they're getting a name of your name for Dog with the Blog, they're getting a movie star for this. And the sides were only 3 pages. They gave no information. And I start bitching about it to my wife. I don't remember. And she says, God bless her, she goes, well, isn't that great? You get to make up whatever you want. I don't want to hear that. I said, this is like being on a merry-go-round, and they put a target 50 yards down the line, and they've given you a single dart. That's what this is like. I'm really out of my source. But in the end, put on my acting suit, I do my work that I was taught, that I've been doing all my life. I memorize my lines, I make choices, I show up because I haven't seen these casting directors in a while. And they are the key to my career. And I thought, oh, well, they also cast The Walking Dead. And then Walking Dead was like in its 4th season or something. I thought, maybe I can get eaten by a zombie, like a 3-episode arc on that. No. So that's my goal. Better Call Saul? That ain't happening.
No, bucket list for zombies.
Yes, which would be fun. That'd be great. A trip to Atlanta.
Right.
Hey. So I go in, I do my thing. Sherry Thomas, I'm sorry, there's a longer story to that because it's very apocryphal. So I go into Sherry Thomas, who I haven't seen in a long time. We start talking. By the way, there's no longer producers, there's no longer writers. It's Sherry Thomas and an iPhone on a tripod. That's it. I go in to see Sherry, and she talks a little bit, and then she goes, great, let's read this. She gives me a note. Just so you know, Vince and the gang really like it real. Got it. Been working for 28 years. They like it real. Fantastic. Let's begin. And we begin, and I don't know what Greek Shakespearean play I thought I was in, but I started talking.
Look at this.
I was projecting out the back of the casting room, and I could feel it. It's a freight train, out of control. And I'm an adult. Did I mention I'm an adult? And I've been doing this a long time, and it's just Sherry. And I am incapable of just stopping and saying, I'm sorry. Could we start again? I can't. I'm caught. Finish it. And she looks at me, and she goes, without malice, she goes, all right, we have that. And she repeats the note.
Yeah.
They like it real. Okay. Somewhere in my reptilian brain, I hear that note. I hear, you did not listen to the note the first time. And then I get a little sad, and I go, oh, I am not going to be a 3-episode arc on The Walking Dead. Okay. Okay, what do? We talk and we listen. Let's go. Then I talk and I listen. I do the 3 pages. I thank her very much. And I go home and I cheer myself up by doing the monologue again against the steering wheel on the drive back to the valley. And by the time I get into the driveway, I convince myself that, I might get eaten by a zombie. You never know. 2 weeks later, I get a call. My agents say, Vince Gilligan has seen your tape and they'd like to test you. And I said to my manager, really? He said, yeah, really. And I said, well, we both shouldn't be surprised. But he was. Because he knew they're looking for a movie star. And then I go to Sony. And then I sign a sheet of papers, which you do when you get into this situation. And then I go to a room. And then, now everybody's here. AMC is here. Sony is here. Vince is here. Peter is here. Melissa Bernstein is here. All those people are here. I'm sitting in the lobby with Michael Mando. It's just him and me. And he's already sitting there looking, like Michael Mando. And I walk up and I'm in my suit. And he's in his acting leathers and I'm in my acting suit. And I walk up and I see him and he looks at me and goes, hey. And I said, you reading for the suit guy? And he goes, no, I'm not. We sat there and became fast friends. He went in probably for 10 minutes. I thought it was like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And he left. And then I went in. And I did my thing. I did the same scene. And this time Sherry was there. I read it again. And then Vince gave me a note. And then I read it again. And actually, Vince gave me a little note. And I changed it just a little bit. And we finished. And he goes, do you want to do anything? And at that point, I have enough experience to know that the answer is no, I do not want to do anything. Because at that point is when I want to show him how I can act.
Yes.
Right? I know this. And I go, you're still the one probably making the decisions, right? And he goes, well, that's what they tell me. And I said, well, if you like it, I'm done. He goes, great. A week and a half later, I get a call. Congratulations, you booked the role of Howard Hamill on Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
And the applause should be because the reality of it is people say, what's it like? I said, it's like this. I get passed over for a Name Me Your Name on Dog with a Blog. And within a month, I get the role of Howard Hamill. I am not a different or a better actor for either of these. If I think that, I'm dead in the water. I just wasn't right for this one. It wasn't the answer for what they were looking for. Whatever I think about it, who cares? It wasn't the answer for them. I was the answer for this. In my idea, that is what it's like being an actor.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Was Saul the first time working in Albuquerque? And in
No, I did Crash.
Oh, Crash, sure.
As a matter of fact, I was reminded, I was driving out to this Stephen Casada had a golf tournament for charity yesterday. I was invited to go play, and I went past the Nativo.
Yeah.
And I realized, I was there to work on Crash. That was the first time I was in Albuquerque.
And now that you lived here, basically, favorite restaurants?
Farina is my go-to.
Yeah.
It's just comfort food.
Yeah.
Whether you sit at the bar, at the table, or outside. I love that. But, farm and table, I love. And, if I had all the money in the world, I'd eat at Los Poblanos all the time. But,
But
we all go like once a year, right?
Yeah,
That's it,
yeah.
right?
Because they take American money.
They take a lot of American money.
I think if you've been in New Mexico, we have to ask you the question: red, green, or Christmas?
Oh, I like green. I'm a green guy.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well done. You gonna get some chilies while you're out here? Let's roast it.
I bought chilies for everybody one year as a gift. I thought this would be a great idea. And I boxed them up, and I took them home, but I'd gotten them early. And so I left them in the boxes, sitting in the corner. Of course, you're supposed to let them out because the air needs to be around them. And if you don't, then they become awful. And I had this, I was like, what's wrong with my house? So all those Christmas gifts went away.
Yeah. But our local economy thanks you.
Yeah.
So you got your equity card with the Shakespeare. How did you get your first SAG-AFTRA card? What was that gig?
Head and Shoulders commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have dandruff, or were you recommending it to a friend?
No, it was, it's real woke. It was two guys leering at a woman with blonde hair in Union Station in Los Angeles. We're walking, talking about stuff. I don't know, man. And all of a sudden, this blonde comes walking through us, and we're like,
Those were the
hey,
days.
man, look at her, or something like that. We're high-fiving at her. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
awful. But
Yeah.
he gave me my SAG card, and I was thankful for that. Yeah.
Which does tie into the first time I met Patrick. I was on the board, and we used to have the Film and Media Days up at the Roundhouse because the leadership at the time was always kind of, we're going to get rid of the incentives. We may not. So we show up en masse at the Roundhouse and get speakers. And Patrick came to speak and talk about the importance of art, the importance of culture, the importance of union jobs. And I remember two things. He had like a turquoise kind of belt. I was like, oh, this guy's,
He's a real cowboy.
yeah, exactly. And then he was speaking, and he talked about like union wages, and we're not asking for a king's ransom, but a livable wage.
Yeah.
And that just really landed with me, because that's what it's about in any profession, is a livable wage and getting by. So when did you become, he's been a Los Angeles board member. What got you involved as sort of the activism or the service side of the union? What was that call for you?
Well, I was trying to get laid, and it's all right. She's my wife, and we've been doing it for a long time now.
Union worker?
Yeah, union work. No, we were starting to date, and she was all like, hey, we should run for the board. I have a friend, and she was very active, and her heart is big, and she was like, we should do this. And I'm like, all right, if this is going to get your pants off, I'm going to do it. Let's go. And so we started getting involved in it, and it turned out, much like all politics, those who show up and participate tend to be able to make the rules. And if you stand back, you sit in the background, and tweet and say this and that, you might not like what goes on. And it turns out I wasn't Brad Pitt, and I wasn't George Clooney, I wasn't a star, and I was cussing over, 35, 40, and I was like, oh, I don't even know how my contracts work. I don't know how my health insurance work. I don't know anything about this, and I should. So I started to get involved. And my wife and I both got on the local board in Los Angeles. I was there for about probably 8 years of board service. I was there when the unions merged. And, like any body that's trying to govern itself, particularly with a bunch of actors, and now even more, our umbrella is much larger for a much stronger union. We're all a little crazy, and it's hard to come to, agreeing of how to go about things. And what I found again and again and again is that the priority of having union work and union wages, and for me, my money, this goes for the entire country, it's the only thing that is going to protect you against predatory practices from producing entities. And by their very nature, producing entities do not want to humanize you. They want to extract the most from you. They want to pay you the least to make the most profits for themselves in any business. And a union allows you at least a shot at having safe working conditions, a decent living wage, and protections for safe working conditions. Those are three basic inalienable rights in my mind that just because we're artists, we should not have to afford. And the union, the entertainment industry has a long history of being exploitive and all those sort of things. And my life is wonderful. My life is really great, even without Saul, by the way. I had to wait for the next Dog with a Blog movie. That's a fine. I've been a working actor, and things have been really good. But because of that, it's even more important that I wasn't George Clooney, that I have a union. It's more important that when I am the guest star on this particular show, that I have a guaranteed wage, and I don't have to bargain myself out of a livable wage. And so union is important. It is national. And I think, non-union work has its place as a stepping stone into union work, without a doubt. But it is not a place, as many people will know, where you can make a living. And it's because it is non-union, and it becomes a take it or leave it. And it preys on your desperation, it preys on your fear. And I recognize that I'm fortunate in the amount of work that I've had, but in the same respect, I have trained for a craft, to be in a craft, and I have taken the slings and arrows that it comes. I have gotten lucky, I have gotten fortunate, but a lot of that fortune was because I got paid a union wage that allowed me to not work for a couple of months. That allowed me to not have to go back to a straight job for a little bit and maybe ride the wave and move on to it. So I'm a big advocate of that. And here in New Mexico, I know it's tough. I know in other states it's tough. But I just think the whole business would be better off if everything could have a modicum of unionism in it. Because in the end, there's so much money that can be made. There's so much money that is made at the top. And I find it to be disingenuously appalling when production pulls its pants out and says, I don't have any money to pay hair and makeup for overtime. I just find it to be reckless and mean-spirited.
Because they made that call from their house in Aspen.
Well, that's true, too. And by the way, it is a bit of a soapbox, but everything in my life is stamped union. My kids, we were talking about this, it's in politics today, the demonization of union. California is the big one that they want. They want to make it a right to work for less state. God, they want to do it. They keep rewriting it and just throwing it up there on the ballot. They keep rewriting it, and they can't wait to do it. And it's, in my mind, my own personal opinion, whatever your politics are, please have them. But in my mind, in my experience, 40 years working at this thing, that is a cancer. They can't wait to not pay you. So what I hope is that unionism continues to be strong. I think this year in particular has been a nice resurgence of at least the idea of it. And I think the demonization of unionism needs to be put on the ash heap of history, without a doubt. I think the talking points need to be put forward much more stronger about the idea of that. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about casting directors, and I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to casting directors, and they're always such the unsung heroes, and they're finally getting an Oscar category.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, way overdue.
Yeah, way overdue. Our agents get us in the room, but everything else starts and ends with them, really. You should look at Patrick's tape here on Howard. I think it might be okay. Not this other one where he was like this. But they protect us when we mess up too.
Absolutely.
Right? And it really is a team, and we are really lucky in this market to have fantastic casting directors who are rooting for us and wanting to raise all boats. We're one of the oldest locals, SAG-AFTRA-wise, and I think back in the day they had like 40 to 70 members. We're over 1,000 now.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So
That's
and
great.
It's been rising ever since. Any desire to go back to the board? Because it seems to me it's been the most unified it has been, and we'll get back to the fun entertainment stuff because I got some.
Yeah, I guess the two answers. One, I've served my time there. It's time for somebody, frankly, younger.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm almost 60, and the fact of the matter is, I'm in the last third of my life, my career. If I'm lucky, I can squeeze a decade out, maybe. I don't know. It's a crazy landscape out there. It's all turned upside down, and like I said, the wrong side of 50 is equally the wrong side of 60, and there's just, I don't think it is an ego thing. There's just a practical notion of those roles aren't as available or not as lucrative. It's a young person's business. It's a young pretty person business. You know what I mean? And so the young pretty people should be on the board to seek after their protections
And their generation.
protecting their future and stuff like that. I love to provide my experience, strength, and hope.
Yep.
Without a doubt. But in terms of actually putting myself back in it, and to be frank, because I've been on Saul,
Yeah.
and because there is perception that, well, he's just rich and he's famous and all that stuff. Yes, I'm recognizable. I'll give you that. But that comes with a bit of, you stand up and start talking like that, and there's certainly rank and file members of the SAG-AFTRA union who love me, but would also go like, he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's some weight to that argument, maybe. And so I think it's important that it's a real rank and file workers union that looks out for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But talking about casting directors and being in the room, what do you think this whole self-tape business?
Well, you know what?
I miss being in the room.
I miss being in the room too. I like being chatty. I think I do well. I like the live performance. Not everybody does though. A lot of people don't audition well.
Right.
And they like the thing. Ask me in the good. What do I think about it?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It's here.
Right?
Who cares?
So own it, right?
No,
Lean
and,
into it.
and I mean that. No, it is. It is. You can bitch and moan and say like, well, they should pay. Like, guess what? They're not going to.
Right.
They're not going to all of a sudden pay for you to audition. And if they do, it's not. It's like when you sign the sheet and you go in and they've kept you waiting more than an hour. In theory, your union has gotten you a bump. You should get paid $20 for your time. Great. Maybe you'll see it. I don't know. The point is, this is what's going on. When they stopped taking 8x10s, you could still spend money on making 8x10s if you want, but it no longer is that. So I fought it. I fought it, and I didn't have the right equipment, and I would bitch every time, and my poor wife, I was mad. I said that before, and I mean that. Don't you know who I think I am? It's the sickness we all have. At least I have. I'll speak for myself. Why can't they offer that to me? Don't they see my website? Can't they look at my resume? You know? And it's like, yeah, I guess they could, but they didn't.
Yeah.
It comes down to this. We used to say that on Friday afternoons, there was a place on Abbot Kinney, which is over near Venice Beach, which is on the west side of Los Angeles. We all lived on the other side. And invariably, you would get like a commercial audition at 4 o'clock on a Friday. So, right, I don't want to go. I mean, frankly, I've been screwing off all week, so I didn't have auditions. I've been going to the gym and having lunch. But I don't want to go out for the job opportunity because it's inconvenient and And, you know, a friend of mine just said, two friends, back in the day, my one friend said, he goes, oh, yeah, you don't have to. I mean, if you don't want the job, don't. Totally cool. But if you want this particular job, the requirements are this. And until they're calling you to offer it, do you want to do this? Which goes to this for me. It's you're in or you're out.
Yeah.
Super clean. You're in or you're out. An opportunity comes, whatever it may be. Could it be an audition out there? Could it be a small film that shoots in Big Bear that pays no money? Could it be a Marvel piece? Could it be a Christian movie? I don't know. Whatever your decisions are, like, should I, blah, 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 blah. It's this. Are you in or are you out? And if you are out, whatever those reasons are, I have an ethical problem with this. I don't want to spend gasoline. That's all good. You and your therapist and your friends who are going for hikes and having coffee and talking about it can have a circle jerk about it. That's great. Do that. But if you're in, all that noise goes to the side. We do not judge the script. We do not judge this. If you're in, your job begins. What is your job? My job for 40 years, 35 years is great. What's the script? Oh, I don't have the whole script. Great, I have this. What am I going to do? I'm going to memorize it. I'm going to make decisions. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to not go to the party. I'm not going to go to dinner. I'm going to cancel the movie. I'm going to work on my audition. I'm going to know where I'm going to go. I'm going to get a good night's sleep. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to drink my green juice. I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to worry about what I should have been and why I wasn't the lead on Friends. And blah, 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 blah. Get that noise
But
out.
you did do Friends.
I did do Friends, yes. Thank you. But, you know, that's the job. Are you in or you're out? And if you're in, do your job. And your job is to audition to the best of your ability. And if that means I have to self-tape, then again, this, I don't know how I feel about that, can wait. Get it done.
Because you're in.
Don't make excuses, because you're in. And then you do it. And that's it. It is out of your hands. You're probably good. Are you going to get the job? I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. Of course you're good. You've been doing it a while. Are you going to get the job? Probably not.
Shit, I just quit my job.
Yeah. yeah. So I feel like I'm yelling at you guys. Thank you for coming out, by the way.
So, I'm going to do my best James Lipton here for Inside the Actors Studio. So, got a couple questions, but first I'm going to tell you one of your castmates' names.
Okay.
And I just want one, top of your head response.
Sure.
Jonathan Banks.
Oh, sweetheart.
Ray.
Effervescent.
Michael McKeon.
Genius.
Bob.
Is scrupulous.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And our local working actor on that, Peter Dyseth, who played D.A. Oakley.
Oh my God. He's just the best, but we never worked together. It was awful. We would just pass each other, and then we'd see each other's work, and then we'd pass each other like in hair and makeup. So we're friends, but we never got to be colleagues in the same scene, which is a bummer. He's the best, man.
Yeah.
He's got a great attitude. And also, talk about somebody making a role into a character. He could have easily sort of been pedestrian with what they had given him and sort of blah, blah. But Peter infused that with such a good history, a sense of we knew where he was coming from. We knew interactions and what was happening. And he became somebody we looked forward to watching in the world because he was a real 3D character. He didn't get big monologues. He didn't have a whole bunch of everything. But man, he was in it. It just does that thing that fleshes out the entirety that makes you feel like, oh, I'm watching a real thing. These people are real.
Yes.
Yeah, he's great. He's always a huge cat lover, I believe.
Yes.
Yep.
And our daughters are friends, and he was telling me a story. This goes back to what you're talking about, like with guest stars. Bob was like, oh, Peter, I'm just going to ride my bike over to your apartment so we can run lines. Right? So that's, I think, that community that this show has.
Yeah.
Is, well, how can we make this work? Okay. Favorite swear word?
Swear word? Oh, maybe the F word.
All right.
Yeah.
You can say it.
Fuck.
Sure.
Although somewhere my daughters are going, that's a quarter in the jar.
Because they know.
They know.
Yeah.
They know now.
What is your least favorite word to hear?
It's a combination. We're going the other way.
They sound a name of your name.
A name of your name.
By the way, that dog is unemployed.
Oh, yeah.
If you weren't an actor, what would you do?
Well, I'd say, I'd love to say musician, but I'm really not that disciplined to be a musician is the thing. But we all want to be rock stars, right?
Absolutely.
That's all that is.
Did you ever have a band?
No, there was no rock and roll bands with lead trombones at the time when I was growing up, so.
So this is your next gig.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah, a sad touring company of The Music Man, starring Patrick Fabian. Right here in River City.
I'll take 2 tickets.
You'd buy 2 tickets,
But can you calm me? So we're going to open up for some Q&A. But before we do that, I want to say, how many people in the audience said that were either an actor on the show, a cast member on the show, a crew member on the show? Just show of hands. Yay! The whole Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul universe has just been good to this city, good to this town, and good to the talent here. And it's been a pleasure having that whole thing here. And we're glad you're back.
Absolutely.
But talk a little bit about the movie tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. First of all, I want to thank Mark, and I want to thank Kira Sipler and the Albuquerque Film
And all
Festival.
the volunteers. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All volunteers. And I want to thank you for indulging me. I mean, it's a big ego fest without a doubt, and it makes me very, very happy to be here.
And this is just the halfway point.
I know. I do feel very loved being in the city, but the reason we're here is because in spite of it all, in spite of the onslaught of life being on fire falling down around our ears, There are still volunteers and people who are willing to say we should have art. We should have a space for art. We should have a space for artists to show their work that is not going to be picked up by Sundance and maybe not going to, be a rom-com that makes $1 gazillion and there's no action figures with the way we speak. But it is a venue that allows a first-time feature director, Ian Embright, to have a show here. And I get to come see the movie as it was intended to be made on the big screen. And I want to thank the festival for existing to provide all of those filmmakers a space to see their art performed exactly where they needed it to be done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As to this film,
Yeah. What's it about?
Ian saw Better Call Saul, and he was sitting up in Seattle, and he saw a scene that I did, and he said, "Oh, he'd be perfect for this character that I wrote." And he found out a way to go ahead and get the script to me, and I read it, and I say that like, "Oh, it's hard to get to me," my emails like every, you know what I mean? It's like,
He texted me with
it's
his
not
real
like my
number
people
today.
were,
Yeah.
sheltering me from offers. You know what I mean? So I read it, and what I liked about it was that he was trying to say something, and that really attracted me. I was like, "Oh, by the way," and I told him this. I called him up. I said, "I really like this because it looks like you're trying to say something." And I said, "I'm not sure what it is, but I'd like to help you find out." And he was like, "Well, it's going to be like a low-budget thing. We're going to shoot it in Portland." We just had a conversation. I liked what his vibe was. He liked what my vibe was. And we decided we could collaborate on this. And so then you sign on. And this goes back to marching band. This goes back to the Shakespeare Festival. This goes back to getting out of school and being in a theater that you don't get paid for. He's like, "Well, it would be really great if we could have you and we could do this and da-da-da." We say yes. And then we all meet in Portland. And then there we are. Like I've been 100 times in a table read, meeting new people. Hi, who are you? Here, blah, blah, blah. Now we're going to sit down and we're all going to read this script. We all have opinions and ideas about what it might be. And we read it, and we were right next to a jazzercise. There's still those places. A jazzercise was next to us. And they had a night class. And we're reading this piece. When you see it tonight, imagine jazzercise going next to it. And yet, in the midst of that, and it's crazy, and it's Portland, and we're all getting that, there was something there. And we're like, "Oh, well, we all came to put on a show. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Get your sleep." I get nervous. Set 2 alarms. First day of school. Are they going to like me? Am I going to be good? And then you show up, and then you start talking and listening. And you have a director to guide you. And it's, the crew is in Portland. Some people are experienced. Some people are not. So you have to make way. You have to help out. Oh, here, that light moved. And it becomes a collaborative thing, and you're doing this, and you start doing it. Long days. You get into it, and all of a sudden you're like, "I don't know what's going on. Is this good? Is this bad? I don't know." Blah, 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 blah. And then you finish it. And then I see the finished product. And it's exactly what was on the page. He shot what he wanted to shoot, which is great. And I think it's beautifully shot. Our DP was great. Ian had a deft touch with a lot of stuff. And I liked his ambition with willing to talk about ideas and getting to your point.
Yeah.
What's the film about? The film is ostensibly about a man who's looking at his last chance for glory after feeling slighted in second place most of his life. And it deals with the issues of what do you gain when you finally get the crown? At what expense? Both with your personal relationships, perhaps your emotional insides, your morality. And along the way, Ian deftly goes ahead and introduces a discussion of God. Not in a heavy, didactic, crazy way. And there's nothing is on the scale. It's presented for the audience to sort of make up their minds and stuff like that. But he's not afraid of language. He's not afraid of the audience having an attention span. And I'm really proud of the film. I'm really glad that they're having it for closing night here. And again, if you're here at 5:30, fantastic. And if you're not, it is available on VOD. You can find it on Prime Video and Apple TV and stuff like that. And, we've got some good reviews so far. And, he's been taking it around to festivals. He might talk to this later tonight. But like any festival, like any film, like any offering, we've all put together something. What do you think?
Yeah.
And you want everybody to be like, "That's the best thing ever." Not everybody thinks so. Some people really love it. Some people have questions about it, like any piece, We're either thumbs up or we're all want to be critics, right? We want to be this. What I loved about this, what I love about what the end result of it is what we set out to do shows. Whether it hits the way we intended, well, that always depends on the audience anyways. It's 2 persons for the component, right? That doesn't exist. The movie doesn't exist on its own. It has to be viewed. And so I look forward to seeing, because I've been in a couple of different houses,
Yeah.
and you can feel reactions one way or the other.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of a flip of like theater, right? You're watching your own work with them getting the reactions versus doing the work and getting the reactions live.
Yeah, and it's always surprising what you think you do.
I was gonna say, has that been the
stuff,
biggest?
stuff that I'm just like, oh, this is gonna work. Crickets. The audience is like, whatever. And then other stuff where you're like,
What do they find? Wait,
Yeah,
what are they?
yeah,
Why
yeah.
are they laughing?
what's that got them? And again, that just goes back to square one of the mystery of like, my job is to sort of interpret and do and be and release from the outside of directing. What does this look like? Is my eye in the right? I mean, there's some practical mechanical
Right.
things that actually go with the craft, yes, but in the end, the idea of being able to like let loose and go and have somebody else out there, a director, say like, yeah, that's good 3/4 of the way, but then let's bring it back, that.
Yeah, right.
And we had a lot of that on set, and it was exciting. And it was exciting to work with new people.
Yeah.
Always, you get scared. Do I know what I'm doing? I don't know. No, neither do they. They're scared too, and
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun and exciting. And no, we didn't get rich off of the piece at all. But boy, it was a rich experience. And in the crooked line of I don't know where things go, you say yes to this because he saw an episode of Saul. I get to go to Portland and do a film. I get to go hiking and see waterfalls I'd never seen. I get to make friends I'd never seen. And then all of a sudden, Kira says, "Oh, would you like to come back to Albuquerque and come home?" Sounds good to me.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, and we're so happy to have you. Yeah. Yes, thank you all for coming out. Please come see the film tonight.